Is Sawyer Robertson broken?
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Of course he isn't, but that's what makes this so much more frustrating. Welcome in, Bears fans, to another edition of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Game Time and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on YouTube through Rogue Media Sports Network. I appreciate you guys making it your first listen today and every day. We're going to talk about why this Sawyer Robertson thing is pretty frustrating, but why it's not his fault. And then we are going to have it. We're going to have a frank, real, honest discussion about Dave Aranda and his future at this program. And then we will also talk about the defense's injury problem. Can we use that as an excuse? All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. But we start where we start. Sawyer Robertson. I'm sure teams the last 2 weeks, specifically Arizona State, taking a bit of a victory lap of like, hey, we beat the best quarterback in the Big 12. I even saw some Sam Levitt greater than Sawyer Robertson comments. He's not. Sam Levitt's a nice quarterback. He's not better than Sawyer Robertson. And certainly Sawyer's last 2 weeks were not as productive as his first 2 weeks when he looked like the Heisman front runner. But is Sawyer Robertson broken? No way, no how. Man, Sawyer is doing just fine. And overall, this Baylor offense is doing just fine. Was it their best effort on Saturday? No, it wasn't. They left points on the board and they scored 24, which is just not enough. And I don't think Sawyer's going to tell you like, yeah, it was awesome on Saturday, but some costly turnovers, a couple of fumbles and a pick that lead to 9 points. And that's where that gets you. You know what I mean? I don't think it's Sawyer's worst game in a Baylor uniform by a long shot. In fact, his game, 64% completion percentage, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. I mean, that would have been one of his best games last year. Watching it didn't look like it, didn't feel like it, but it would have been. In fact, it would have been better than the win against TCU, who would have had a better individual night in this game against Arizona State, which was a thrilling, exciting win when they scored 37 points. It was basically the same as that game against Oklahoma State last year in homecoming, in which, again, they scored 38 points. Basically the same stat line. But they didn't win this game. And so then that becomes a question. Offense didn't do what they needed to do. But Sawyer Robertson is just fine. And he's not going anywhere for this year. But that does lead to some frustration at the fact that this team is 2-2. Because Sawyer is one of the best quarterbacks in America. He's the best quarterback Baylor's had in 10 years. And it would be a real shame to see this season just become just another season when you have the best talent that you've had at the most important position in football, the best talent that you've had there in 10 years. That's what's frustrating. That's what got us. That's what got our expectations high. And it wasn't just me. There were a lot of Baylor fans that got their expectations pretty high, thinking this team should be in the Big 12 championship picture, mainly because they have Sawyer Robertson. Pete said it on Friday. Baylor's going to win this game because they have Sawyer Robertson. Like that is not a fool's way of thinking of this. And so that's what makes it agonizing to see this team at 2-2. And I know one of the popular sentiments has been, and I mentioned it on I believe the postgame show, was when you looked at the schedule before this season and you saw SEC Auburn week 1, college football playoff SMU week 2, and college football playoff and defending Big 12 champions Arizona State in week 4 with an FCS game mixed in there. You'd say, 2-2, I can live with that. I can live with 2-2. But then Sawyer Robertson looked like the best quarterback in America the first 2 weeks. And that's what he's capable of. You know that. And it dawns on you in those first 2 weeks, we have got something really special here with this quarterback and this offense as a whole. This is a special unit. This is the best kind of offense we've seen here in a decade when it was the best offense in America. This is a legit top 20 group with a top 10 offensive coordinator and a top 5 quarterback. Once in a while, you need the defense to pick you up. They didn't quite do enough in this game. And so to sit there at 2-2, knowing what it's been like the last 10 years to get an offense like this, we've been waiting for an offense like this. To finally have it and to see that they're just 500 after the first month of the season, yeah, it's a bummer. It's a real bummer, man. And hopefully they can put up some big numbers in the next 2 weeks. You are facing two teams that are just flailing to keep their head above water right now. Two coaches in the next 2 weeks that are flailing to keep their head above water. I think we know what that feels like, being in a fan base that supports a coach that is flailing in the water there. I think we know a bit about that these days. But that's what makes this so frustrating. And hearing that very, very small corner of Baylor's fan base and a small corner of the college football fan base in the Big 12 saying, oh, guess Sawyer Robertson wasn't all he was made out to be, huh? They're lumping him in with Devin Dampier. That's not right, man. I mean, he's still putting up legit numbers. He is still one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, if not, which is the best quarterback conference in the country. Still got 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns to 3 picks, man. I'll take that after 4 games. That's pretty dang good. And when you look at the Big 12 rankings, he's still the leader in yards and touchdowns. So if you told me that Baylor was going to be 2-2 at the start of the season, I'd say, okay, it's maybe taking a minute for the offense. Maybe it's taking a minute for Sawyer to get going. Maybe Auburn's got a better defense than we thought. Maybe SMU's got some defense. Maybe Arizona State is just as advertised as they were last year. But those things aren't the case. They're not. Auburn's got a good defense. But that's overall not the case. And so that's why it stings that this team is 2-2. Because this team with this offense and this quarterback was not supposed to be like other Baylor teams. Because I know you've heard that from some fans too. Oh, well, 2-2 is pretty good for Baylor. You win 8 games and throw a parade. I'm not thinking like that because they've got a quarterback with this much talent. And again, I'm not throwing it on him that they're 2-2. I'm not. Offense could have played better on Saturday. Absolutely, they could have. And those turnovers killed them. But I'm certainly not ready to say that he's not the best quarterback in the conference. It's him and Hoover right now. That is still head and shoulders above the rest. He's got 300 more yards passing than Hoover does. I also don't want to throw a parade for 8-4. And that's why we've got to talk about Baylor's head coach. Is it time? Has the hourglass run out on Dave Aranda's tenure at Baylor? Let's talk about it next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Square, the neighborhood place, man. Your favorite neighborhood spot runs on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home. The local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving that community for decades. These are places that bring people together. Mortadella Head, man, right down the street, best chicken parm sub I've ever had, locally run. It's awesome. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. I know you guys have that spot too, right? In Waco, it's either the Buckle or it's Cups or it's George's. So many great local places in that great city. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time, the only place that I go to buy tickets. And I'm probably buying too many tickets, but Game Time makes it so easy and simple. And with college football back, we couldn't be more excited for the tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's nothing like actually being there. But let's be real. Getting the tickets can feel like more of a battle than the stress we get during the games themselves. Endless queues, hidden fees, those prices doubling at checkout. It's annoying, man. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Look, we're winding down on baseball season 2. You want to catch one before the playoffs, jack up the prices. I just looked at it. Red Sox tickets this weekend. Man, it's so simple. It is so simple. $50 right now. I'm going to wait till Friday and get them for about half that price. Or I could just use a zone deal, which is so great with Game Time as well. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Back here on Locked On Baylor, we are in game week for Baylor versus Oklahoma State. And if you go by this neat top 10 list right here of the week 5 hot seat, top 15 actually, hot seat in college football in week 5, this is going to be an all-time hot seat matchup. Dave Aranda at number 9, Mike Gundy at number 3. But does Dave deserve to be on the hot seat? That is a question that has come up quite a bit through the first couple of weeks of this college football season. It's time. It's time to have a frank, honest discussion about Dave Aranda and his future as the head coach of the Baylor Bears. It's a topic that I've avoided so far this season because I didn't think it needed addressing. But after 2-2 and running into the same problems again and again and again, as we sit here in year 6 of the Aranda era, I think it's time to talk about it. And I always do this show to be the pulse of the fans. And I am seeing an overwhelming fan acknowledgement, I guess, that it might be time up for Aranda. I've seen it in the comments of a lot of videos over the last 2 weeks. I see it on social media. I hear it from fans all the time. They want Dave Aranda gone. They want Dave Aranda fired. And I think most of you, if you're not on that, certainly have a contingency plan of like, well, if this doesn't happen, this has to be it. I know I do. I have a contingency plan for that. Like if they don't win 9 games this year, I don't think you can run it back. I don't want to run it back. That's me putting it out there right now. If they don't win 9 games, I want Dave Aranda to be fired. Again, like I did in 2023. And that can subject to change in terms of like, you know, they win 9, but they don't fix all the same problems. But to me, I said it before the season was 10, and now I've softened it up to 9. But something's got to change here. Something has to change. And I posed this to the folks on the Big 12 squad, which we did our Sunday show. And I just laid out the resumes of 3 coaches and deciding which ones you would fire and which ones you would keep for another year. The first one I gave was a guy who had been in 6 seasons in the Big 12. He had a 500 winning percentage. He was 2-2 in bowl games, 0-2 in conference, 0 conference championship appearances, and 0 10-win seasons. That was Coach A. And our panel wanted to fire this guy too. He was fired. It was Neil Brown of West Virginia. And then I gave kind of a blind taste test of the other 2 coaches, basically just looking at their last 4 years. Both of these coaches that I'm about to name had 1 stellar year at their current job. Okay? But in the 4 years since, here's what they're looking at. Coach A, 20-22 overall, a 480 winning percentage, 2-0 in bowl games, 0 9-win seasons, and 0 conference championship appearances. Commit that to memory. 480 winning percentage. Coach number 2, Coach B, 19-23 over that time span, a 450 winning percentage. 0-2 in bowl games, 0 9-win seasons, and 0 conference championship appearances. Everyone on the panel on Sunday on the Big 12 squad, everyone on the panel said, I would keep Coach A for one more season. I would fire Coach B this year. Coach A is the one, the only, Sam Pittman. The guy who is seen as like the hottest seat in America right now. People wondering, how on earth does Sam Pittman have a job? Who does he have photos of? That's the coach that everyone would want to keep on the blind resume taste test. The coach they wouldn't want to keep is Dave Aranda. He's the one in the last 4 years with the 450 winning percentage, with the 0-2 in bowl games, with the 0 9-win seasons and the 0 conference championship appearances, and 4-12 against Power 4 opponents at home. He's the one. It's not Sam Pittman. It's not Mike Gundy. It's not Billy Napier. No, it's Dave Aranda. And I already can hear you. I know. We'll present that now. Obviously, the year before we started tracking for the sake of this list is one of the great seasons in Baylor football history. They were 12-2. They won the Big 12. They won the Sugar Bowl. They had 4 or 5 ranked wins that year, and they finished in the top 5 in the final AP poll. The problem is, a month into the next season was when they dropped out of the top 25. And they have not been in it in the 3 years since. He's a game over 500 in his time here. And that includes a 12-win season. Think about that critically for a second. You can't take it away. It's a great season. And I give Dave a lot of credit for that, even though it was with Matt Rule's players. I give Dave a ton of credit for that 2021 season. But think of the math there. You take out a 12-2 season from a 32-31 overall record. It looks putrid. And I know you can't take it out, but that's 2 winning seasons in 5 years. That shouldn't be good enough. And that's where the question comes in with any college football hot seat, is that you have to ask, can we do better? Can we do better than Dave Aranda as a coach? Can we do better than the results that Dave Aranda has put on the field? In this age of NIL and transfer portal and Baylor not being the size of some of these other NIL powerhouses and not being in one of the conferences of these NIL powerhouses, I think Baylor can do better. Straight up. I think Baylor can do better for 2 reasons. One reason is I've seen Baylor do better. Like, that's the most glaring one. And, you know, a lot of people say Matt Rule was building something, and I absolutely understand that. But I'm, of course, referring to Art Briles and what he had, the way that he had this football program going on the field, okay? They were one of the best teams in America for the first half of the 2010s decade. They really were. They were a legit powerhouse for a couple of years there. And if what happened didn't happen and he had stayed for another 5 years, Baylor absolutely would have been playing for a national championship at some point. They were that good. And I choose to believe that doesn't have to be an anomaly. It doesn't have to be, especially with how wide open this conference is now. I get that you don't have the money that some of the other big schools do, but like, Art was recruiting 3-stars and making them into 5s. You just need the right coach. You need a dynamite coach. And right now, I don't think they have the right coach. The other reason why I think Baylor can do better is I look at last year. If Indiana can get into the college football playoff, if SMU can get into the college football playoff, why do we as Baylor limit ourselves to a coach who's one game over 500? Why do we limit ourselves to that? Kurt Cignetti takes Indiana to the playoff. Rhett Lashley with SMU to the ACC championship game and then the college football playoff. Why would we limit ourselves? Are you, by saying that we can't do better than Dave Aranda, are you saying that SMU is a better football program than us? That SMU is built for the long haul more so than Baylor is? That they have more of a championship pedigree than the Baylor Bears do? I'm not buying that. I'm not hearing that. If that makes me a homer, whatever. I choose to live in a world that I believe Baylor is at worst an even job with SMU in terms of where you can take them. I refuse to believe that SMU is a better job. I refuse to believe that it is easier to make the college football playoff at year one at Indiana, a school that would sometimes forget they have a football program that hasn't won a conference championship in 60 years. I choose to believe that Baylor should have a better path to the college football playoff than them. Skewer me if you need to. But that's, I think, what it comes down to. Baylor can do better than Dave Aranda. And that hasn't always been the case in Baylor's history. But they can do better. And so if you don't live up to the expectations, if that standard is too high for you to win 9 games, I'm not even saying conference championship anymore. I'm not saying college football playoff anymore. If the standard of 9 wins in this Big 12, with all that you have, with a top 10 offensive coordinator, with a top 10 quarterback in America, a top 20 offense, and you have the keys to the defense, if that's too high a standard for you, then yes, Baylor can do better. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. And then like and subscribe. And of course, follow us here on Locked On Baylor every single weekday, completely for free. And if you think Baylor can do better than Dave Aranda, let me know who that is in the comment section below. Coming up, we'll hear from Dave Aranda, and we'll see if he's not making an excuse here, but whether Dave Aranda can make an excuse about this defense. Let's do it next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. You know them. You love them. They craft cars for those who do more than simply move. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our beloved Baylor Bears, Mazda sweats every detail. Because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move. And then guess what? Be moved. Back to it. Locked On Baylor. Oklahoma State game week here. We're going to talk more about the Pokes tomorrow, of course, with Sydney Wicker of KCEN, Channel 6 on a Wicker Wednesday. We'll have to talk Mike Gundy's hot seat. Looked like he might not even make it to this game against the Baylor Bears. His old team, the Baylor Bears. Yeah, 30 years ago, he was a passing game coordinator for one season. And one time, almost head coach of the Baylor Bears, Mike Gundy. Very, very close to being the head coach of the Baylor Bears during my time at school, to tell you how recent, or I guess how vintage that might be to some of my younger viewers and listeners. But let's talk about the issues on defense. Because let me start out by saying it. This is a weird timing for it, but I thought Saturday was Dave Aranda's best game of the season as defensive play caller. I thought the defense played well. I know they gave up 400 yards. But if that's the only stat you're looking at, then you didn't watch the game. It doesn't tell the whole story. And in fact, if you told me, okay, they gave up 400 yards, but they needed the other team needed a walk-off field goal with, with no time on the clock to get to 27 points, I'd say, actually, that sounds like a good performance. Oh, and you lost the turnover battle 3-0. So they got played with some short fields. They must have really put some fires out. And they did. They did. But of course, in the first quarter, the first drive of the game, first series defensively for the Bears, Travion Barnes goes down. And it looks like he's going to be out for the season. They had the air cast on him. They brought the card out there, and he was firing up his teammates. I loved seeing that, by the way. Loved seeing that. And it kind of dawned on me, if this defense reverts to what it was 2 weeks ago, rather than what it was against Arizona State, do they have a legitimate excuse with this injury bug? Are we going to give Dave some slack for how hard this has hit them?
We have an injury to Phoenix Jackson and now an injury to Travion. Those are two of our kind of main portal additions, Devin Turner would be another one of our main portal additions. And so, it's next man up in all those areas. I think with Jay Red, you're seeing him step up in the safety spot.
It's almost like a ball don't lie in the most morbid way, in that Baylor did not have defensive depth last year. And Dave admitted it a couple of times. And then he went out in the portal and he got some starters so that they did have some depth. And then the starters get hurt. And then you got a bunch of guys who haven't played a lot before. Phoenix Jackson goes down. Travion Barnes goes down. Like you mentioned, Devin Turner, all Big Ten honorable mention safety, goes down in the spring game. Jackie Marshall is not at 100%. And by the way, I should have said that in the post game. Like, shout out to Jackie Marshall for really gutting it out. He's clearly not all the way there. And I mean this endearingly because of the position he plays. That's a lot of weight to be putting on a high ankle sprain. Like that's a lot to do every play. And I thought he played well on Saturday. Another guy Dave mentioned there, Jacob Redding. What a season it's been for him so far. Stepping in, former walk-on. I thought played excellent football on Saturday. He obviously had the game tilting pick against SMU. Like, this kid has shown up and he can play. Like, he's for real. Dave also mentioned Caleb Burns is going to have to get some more shine. It's a name he's mentioned a lot, and obviously a big-time recruit from last year, originally committed to Tech, flipped to Baylor. Then it looked like he might go to Oregon, sticks with Baylor. This is a chance for him to step in to a bigger role. But can you play the injury card here if you're looking at Baylor's defense? You kind of can. I don't like making excuses. I don't. And Devin Turner got hurt in April, so I don't love that excuse. But your two linebackers, who are big parts of your portal class, go down in the first 4 weeks of the season. And Dave didn't say it there, but it's implied that those guys are both out for the year. Travion with the surgery on Monday. They're probably out for the year. And that's a huge loss. And Carl Williams has been in and out of the lineup, mostly out. That's another guy who is a starter. I think you should be impressed overall in what you've gotten from your defensive backfield. I know the SMU game was not great. I don't think it was that terrible, but it certainly wasn't that great. I think you've been impressed with that so far. But it is, weirdly, it is an excuse. What I'll say about that, if you're looking at it from the lens of this season, it can be an excuse. If you're looking at it through the lens of Dave Aranda's hot seat, enter another excuse at your own risk. There's been an excuse every single season. But this has hit them hard, man. This has hit them really hard, more so than maybe any other defense in the Big 12. And that's not where they could afford to have some injuries. So yeah, it's been brutal. You couple those defensive ones with, of course, Dawson Pendergrass on offense, a little bit of a banged up Michael Trigg on offense, and that becomes an injury bug. That's what we call that. So are you using it as an excuse? Let me know in the comments below. Speaking of the comments below, it's time for some Locked On Baylor trivia. Scotty B and Daniel Benavidez, two loyal listeners, get the shout out for today's, because of course yesterday's trivia question was this: when was the last time Baylor won a ranked matchup in the regular season? Those two guys both got it right in the YouTube comment section. That would be back in 2021 when Baylor beat Oklahoma, which I think might be the magnum opus of Dave Aranda's tenure at Baylor. That game against Oklahoma was the first time they had beaten them in 7 years, right? 2014 was the last one. Before that, I had never seen them beat Oklahoma since I became a student, and this was a couple years after I graduated. I couldn't believe it. I was so giddy, man. I was like, we're finally going to beat them. That was the last time. That was nearly 4 years ago. It was about 46 months ago was the last time they won a ranked matchup. So not great, but shout out to Scotty B and Daniel Benavidez for getting that right. Now we go to this one, which you got to stick with me on this question because I was trying to find the easiest way to word this, and I don't know if I got it. So Kirk Ferentz, the University of Iowa, is the longest tenured active college coach at his current school. He's been there for like 30 years. What two Big 12 coaches are tied for second on that list? One more time. Kirk Ferentz is the longest tenured active college coach at his current school. What two Big 12 coaches are tied for second on that list? You guys know the drill. First one to get it right in the YouTube comment section or tweeting at us at Locked On Baylor on Twitter gets the shout out for tomorrow's episode, which I hope to see you and hear from you in that one. It's going to be a Wicker Wednesday. We'll talk a little bit more about Oklahoma State and what is coming up this Saturday. Guys, thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. Thank you so much for going through the ups and downs with me and all the rest of us in this Locked On Baylor community. Let me know what you think about the state of the program right now and about the coaching staff and about the fact that they'll probably go 8-4 and Dave will keep his job. Are you worried about this season at all? Have they fallen below where your expectations were? Because it's going to be really tough to get in the Big 12 championship at this point, even though they're only 0-1 in the conference, just with what we've seen from this team so far. So let me know what you have to say about that in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, help us get to 5,000 subscribers and become, if not already, the #1 Baylor football show on all of YouTube. So do that. Help us out. Thanks for making it your first listen today and every day. And we'll see you on the next edition of your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.